Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Mental Toughness and Body Show. On this show, we're going to talk about wealth creation and management and the role it plays in our mental and physical health as well. Now, a lot of people don't worry about their wealth or creating it or preserving it until they really need it. Now, our guest today is going to inspire you to take a deep assessment of your own wealth strategies. He's the owner of SMSF Financial, a financial planner, and focused on helping clients nurture and create their wealth with sustainable strategies. Now, obviously, on this podcast, we've interviewed people from all walks of life, from our A-list celebrities, Olympic gold medalists, and billion-dollar empire builders. And today we have Jason Bibby. Jason, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Rob. And thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us. So Jason, perhaps just tell us a little bit. So SMSF stands for is that right? Small managed superannuation funds.
So it's
Self-managed. They don't have to be small. Yeah, sorry. You should know that. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do, and for our international listeners, explaining a little bit about what superannuation is. So if you're in the US, it's the equivalent of like 401k kind of thing. So maybe tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is financial planning, and within Australia we have a superannuation scheme. Now it's fairly unique in the world, where there's not too many other schemes that are implemented to the same degree as it is in Australia. You do have a 401k in America, which can be a self-directed retirement savings scheme. And then there's also a Kiwi Saver as well. But in Australia, it's compulsory that as of 1st of July next year, it's going to be 12% of your wages gets put into your retirement savings account, which is a superannuation account. Now,
and I guess the history behind this, it was when I first started work, it was February 1990. It wasn't compulsory at that stage. So the principle behind this is that basically humans are pretty crappy at saving for themselves, and this is forcing people to put aside money from their wages, forcing their employers to put money aside so that it takes the pressure away from the government in funding people in retirement. That's the bottom line, isn't it?
Totally. And it's all because our government in Australia realizes that in 30 years' time, it's not going to have the funds there to be able to sustain an aging population in Australia. And so Australians need to be able to fund themselves. And that's where the whole premise of superannuation came in.
Yeah, terrific. And so let me ask you this. What would you say, because people aren't necessarily awesome at doing the saving, but on this show, we like to focus on success, and the people that are listening to this show are either have a lot of success already and want to get the edge, or some people are, aspiring to, be successful. And wealth is, I talk a lot about health, but in terms of wealth, obviously very, very important. What would you say are maybe 3 skills that people need to have in order to build wealth?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I think the first thing that you need when it comes down to building your wealth, you need to start putting money aside, right? And so there's a great book that listeners can jump on and either download or buy. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the whole premise of that book is that 10% of all that you earn is yours to keep. So said differently, now this is where superannuation in Australia, it's actually up to 12% now, right? So the first 12% that you earn before you pay the tax man, okay, it's yours to keep. So the first thing is to start saving and start putting money away, right? Second thing is to be consistent. So work out how much you can afford to save and be very consistent in that saving. And part of that consistency is, using dollar cost averaging. So there's a lot of people that try and buy a particular stock or an investment, or crypto is very topical at the moment, and they're trying to time their entry into it. And then they're trying to time their exit out. And over the long term, right? The greatest investor that's ever walked the planet is Warren Buffett. And if you'd invested $10,000 60 years ago, you would be an absolutely multi-billionaire. Not a billionaire, you'd be a multi-millionaire. It's probably up over $100 million now because of just having that time within the market, not trying to time the market. So dollar cost averaging is the easiest way for novice investors to get started. And then the third greatest attribute is time. And with time, you've got Einstein that speaks about the eighth wonder of the world, which is compounding interest and compounding returns. So if you can dollar cost average over a 5-year period versus say a 20, it's exponential, the returns at the back end.
So maybe this is a good point too, because people might be just like, well, I don't know what you just said. This is a good point to be saying that I think everybody now. Well, I'll tell you the best advice that I ever got from a financial planner was, you get your job, and yes, now super is just compulsory here, so we just keep putting the super in. You get to that stage of your life, you want to buy a new, like a property. You got to live somewhere, so you're either going to rent or you're going to buy a house, and get a loan and get a mortgage and so forth. They said to me, pay off your mortgage as fast as you can, and then start to look at investing, because there's no tax advantage in here in Australia anyway, and living in your personal home and paying that personal debt. So let's get rid of that personal debt. So that's what I did, paid that off, and then looked to investing. And that was the point where it was like, okay, that's when I need to get a financial planner so that I can work out what's the right strategy for me. So I suppose that's the way that I did it. And I'm not suggesting that, disclaimer, everybody does what I just said. But what's your advice when it comes to when's the right time for somebody to say, come and see someone like you, to say, like, do you know what, I want to take complete control of my financial affairs?
Yeah, great question. I would say to come and see me. I specialize in the self-managed super fund space, right? So you need to have between up to 6 members, because you can have up to 6 members of a self-managed super fund. Most of the time, it's a husband and wife, or it's a couple. You need to have over $200,000 in order to come on board with a client for us. So if you're
that's $200,000 of assets to put into the fund
within super, right?
Right.
But generally, if you're 35 years of age and married, and you've been working for the last 15 years, then you probably qualify to come on board as a client. In terms of, I know you've got a lot of US listeners. In terms of going and seeing a financial planner in the US, I would say if you've got excess cash flow, right? If you've got excess cash flow, then it's worth getting advice and starting to think about your overall wealth goals, your retirement goals, how you're going to build your wealth. And the way you do it when you're in your 20s is different to your 30s, different to your 40s, different.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And so one of the things when I first saw a financial planner was you're thinking about, I don't know, investments, what's going to go on in the bank account and so forth. So I know that you also have an insurance side of your business, but one of the things that by having that financial planner was knowing with confidence that everything in my life was set up. So we talked about estate planning, getting wills in place. We set up like a family trust, getting the right insurances, income protection insurance, and all that kind of stuff. So do you perhaps want to talk about maybe the bigger picture of why people need to, because it is an investment, investing in a financial planner to get themselves set up and know with confidence that they're doing the right thing every single day. And you're actually, every single day, that, like you said, well, your dollar cost averaging, you're compounding interest, you're investing, you're putting the money in, that you've got your life in the right place. I'm surprised that so many people don't even have wills. So can you maybe just talk about that big picture for us?
Yeah, look, and the easiest way to talk about this is if I want to fly and get in a plane, I want to fly from Melbourne across to LA, right? then I'm going to need, we used to say a map, right? But now it's all GPS, right? So the plane's going to have a GPS. And when you see a financial planner, it's literally mapping out, where are you today? Where do you want to be? And then it's sort of having that map, that roadmap to follow in order to ensure that you're going to hit your retirement goals or your future aspirations or whatever they may be, whether it's buying a property or buying an investment property. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to having more choices, more flexibility, being able to potentially have choices regarding your work, because your assets are now big enough that they can start taking care of you. So seeing a financial planner is basically about building the roadmap so that you've got tracks to run on to make sure that you get to where you want to go.
And would you find that when people come to see you that they really have no idea, like they don't have a goal? It's like, can you just tell me how much what I've got now should have, and will it last, and that kind of thing?
Absolutely. A lot of the time clients come and see me, one, because they've been referred, and so we got most of our clients come through from referrals. But they just want to know that by the time they want to stop working, that they're going to have enough money to look after themselves. That's the ultimate goal. Now, what that dollar figure is different for every person.
Yeah, of course.
And there's some really great tools where you can work out how much you potentially need in retirement. If you Google retirement calculators, there's a whole plethora in there. And if you're in Australia, the Money Smart calculators are really good. Or if you want to jump on our website, you go to smsffinancial.com.au and you go into the calculators section. Then you can go in and you can have a play around with the different calculators to help you out.
Yeah, that sounds like a great tool. What would you say is a common misconception about your industry that you can debunk for us right now?
Okay. Do you know what? I'm going to go specific with self-managed super funds. Probably the biggest hesitation I have when clients come on board, and, we talk about the benefits of a self-managed super fund. And for all of the Australians there, a self-managed super fund in its simplest form is just a tax structure. That's all it is. It's a tax structure. But because of the tax benefits, it's one of the greatest investment vehicles to build your wealth, right? Particularly when you look at the tax environment, once you get over 60 and you go into retirement phase, all of a sudden you've got 0% capital gains tax and 0% income tax. So it's an absolute game changer. The difference between building your assets and your wealth inside of super and a self-managed super fund is very different to building it in your own name and having to pay the tax at your marginal tax rate. So when I talk to my clients, and quite often I'll go through the benefits of salary sacrificing and how much additional money that you have. And it's anywhere from 30% to 61% more funds. And a lot of the time my clients go, oh my God, I wish I had met you 5 years ago. Right. That's one of the most common things I get. I wish I'd come to you 5 years ago. And then I ask them, I say, well, why didn't you? And the misconception is all around the first two words, self-managed.
Yeah.
And that's what scares a lot of people off. So I think a better name is self-directed, because
okay.
me and my business and my and my staff, we assist our clients with all of the compliance. We hold them by their hands and walk them right through the taxation, what they can do, what they can't do, because there's restrictions of what you can do within the SMSF space. And we make it quite simple to understand their roles and responsibilities around a self-managed super fund. So that's probably the biggest one, is that a self-managed super fund doesn't have to be as hard and as arduous that a lot of people think. It's more self-directed, as in we put a team around you and then the clients sort of are in the pilot seat calling the shots.
Yeah, great. What's the average age of your client, your
Average
typical client?
client is 47.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your view on
Looked at
the, sorry.
6 years ago, Rob, and I thought it was actually closer to 52. And the reason being that what I find is that a lot of our clients that come on board, it tends to be a lot of clients around 50,
Mm.
and I call these the oh shit year, as
Yeah,
in
that's right. So I haven't done anything yet, so I better do something now.
10 years left. And so I had this conception that a lot of my clients were actually, in early 50s, but the actual average age is 47.
What's your view on the the mindset around whether it's millennials, people in their late teens, early 20s, mid 20s, around wealth creation and is I was very focused when I was that age. It's like I want to be financially independent. I want to get to, my first wage in 1990 was $25,000 at Coops and Lybrand. And I was like, man, that was like a really high salary for a graduate at that time. It was like, wow. And I wanted to get to 100 grand as fast as I could and so forth. Now people come out of uni, they want to get 100 plus grand straight away. But anyway, what's your perspective on what's the mindset of the people that are way younger than your typical client in this wealth creation space?
Yeah, yeah. Look, it's a great question, and I'll answer this in two parts because my kids, I've got a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, and I see them, their friends, and the younger kids coming up. I don't know what comes after millennials and how that all works, but I think there was that whole social media sort of generation where you had people like Mark Zuckerberg going out and just killing it, starting their own company, and I feel like there was maybe those in their late 20s sort of went through thinking, you know what, I'm just going to start my own company,
Mm.
and I'm just going to get all the freedom and all the money and everything that I want. I think Tim Ferriss has
Yeah,
some
the 4 hour week.
in
Yeah.
his 4 hour work week,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Great strategies if you look past the headline that gets everybody suck it in, which is
Yeah.
read this book and I'm only ever going to work 4 hours.
If I only worked 4 hours in my business, I wouldn't be getting far.
Mate, and nobody that I know that is successful
Works 4 hours.
doing that. Like even if you're retired and you've got a property portfolio, a shares portfolio, you've got 4 hours a week just managing your actual investment portfolio. So I think there was that generation that went through that sort of was a little bit, I don't know, misinformed about how easy things are and how quickly you can generate wealth and run your own business. And there certainly there are plenty of people that use technology and do a great job and are just killing it out there, but they're few and far between. And I think for those people in their 20s, there's probably a bit of a wake up call happening at the moment where they're going, actually, even though I've got massive, like in Australia, unemployment has never been so low. So in Australia, you can pick and choose your job, but at the end of the day, you've still got to put that time in to build it up. So the second part of that is my kids and my friends' kids. Now, they go to a private school. Most of the owners or most of the parents there are business owners. And I'm not sure whether it's just that circle, but I definitely find within the generation coming up, they're a little bit more well-balanced in terms of what it actually takes in order to be successful. And look, I'm a big believer. I think the greatest quote come from Henry Ford, where he said, most people aren't successful because success is involves rolling up your sleeves and is covered in blue overalls. Something like that.
Yeah. I don't know the quote, but it sounds like something he would say.
Yeah, yeah. In other words, success comes from
A
success,
lot of hard work.
hard work, right? So yeah, but it is interesting. One of the other things, Rob, that about the people in their 20s, 30s is that information is so readily available. There is just a plethora of information. So I do think that and this probably comes down to your show, mental toughness. As long as you can keep your head on straight, there is the abundance of information to start to do a side hustle, to start working on something else or a passion project is probably greater than it's ever been before. I grew up on a farm, right?
Well,
My options were very limited.
yeah. It's so easy to do. You come up with an idea, and you can probably turn it into from just a concept to with online. If it's a digital, a digital idea that you've got overnight, you can start doing something.
Yeah, you got Gary V out there, frustrated at a lot of people on his that follow him that saying how hard it is. And so what did he do? He got out there. I don't know whether you've seen it. It's pretty cool. And he become a bit of an expert in buying match cars at we'd call them garage sales, but at people selling them that do swap meets, garage sales. He got pretty good at identifying match cars, and he'd go negotiate. Then he'd stick them on whether it was whatever marketplace he was, and just to show people that, hey, there's opportunities all around you.
In anything, yeah.
I think that is greater today than what it's ever been, because you can sell a matchbox car, anywhere around the world and ship it.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously on this show, I'd like to talk about as you just touched on there, the mental toughness, the health, the wellness side of things. How much do you think that, which way we go first, that wealth impacts your health and wellness and vice versa?
I definitely think it's health first. It's health first.
That's the right answer.
If
Good
you
work.
if you think that you're going to basically kill yourself in order to make money, there's a quote that basically says a lot of people use their health chasing wealth, and then they use their wealth to try and get
Pay
back.
for to fix the heart and everything.
Yeah, yeah, and look, you will burn out. If you're not eating well and if you're not exercising, then mental burnout is absolutely on the cards. And we all know, and I'm sure your guests would know more than probably many other guests out there, that that when you exercise, you fire off endorphins. You wake your body up. Your brain activity is better, and that helps you to deal with challenges that come along in everyday life. Whether it's running a business, dealing with staff, having investments, whatever it is that comes your way, dealing with kids. If you've gone to the gym in the morning or gone for a walk or built up your, I guess, your energy reserves, then you're going to be in a much better position mentally to handle that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's no wealth without health. Is while we're talking about quotes, is another good one. Yes, well said. So, what would you say is when people say come to see you,
Yep.
or maybe it's just generally in the space of wealth creation, preservation, what's your biggest peeve?
Right. Okay. So, right. I'll just have a think about that. But here it is. Okay. If you want to come see me and if you want to work with me, and we have a connection, we say, right, and I go, I can help you out, and we're going to work together. My biggest peeve, honestly, Rob, is when I send out an email and things to action, and then my team have to follow them up constantly. So, inaction is probably my biggest peeve.
It's not too far away from mine. Mine's excuses. I hate people's excuses. It's like, oh, I'm too tired. I don't have the time. I can't do this. It's like, seriously, come on. Do you want success, or do you just want to keep making up excuses? I don't like excuses.
Oh, mate. And look, and Rob, in my experience, whatever those excuses are, it's generally the exact reason of why they need to do something.
Yes. Yes. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, okay. So I've learned a lot of lessons growing up on a farm. You're probably not going to expect this one. The best piece of advice that I received was from my dad. And on the farm, you become very good at being resourceful and building stuff, because you have to. Necessity is the mother of invention. But my dad went to a guy to buy some, I think they were A-frames, and he had an idea of how much he wanted to pay, and he needed two. And he walked in, and he asked the question. He said, "Well, how much do you want for the pair?" And the guy gave him a price. And I think, back then, we're going back nearly 35 years ago. And the guy basically gave him the price for the pair of what Dad was prepared to pay for one. He got back in the car, and the irony of this, Rob, is that this has left a lasting impression. And I've brought this up with my dad since, and he doesn't remember this at all. But it was a lasting impression on me. And he said, we got in the car, he said, "Well, there's a lesson." He said, "Always ask first of what the best price is, or that they're going to be." So I will say this to make it usable for your guests to use. Always ask in negotiating, what is a fair and reasonable price?
Yeah, I always say, what's your best price?
Yeah. So if I said to you, "Rob, what's your best price?" and you tell me it's $150, and I go, "Oh, Rob, it's a bit more than what I wanted to pay. What do you think is a fair and reasonable price?" You've already given me your best price.
Yeah.
So I can't say anything different, but I can say, what do you think's a fair and reasonable price? And then you go, "Look, 150 is really as low as I can go. But you know what? How about we do it for
You're a
one?"
nice guy. Let's do 149.
Tough negotiator.
Yeah. Yeah, nice. Um, what would you say is your superpower? I
Mm.
did say I wouldn't ask you questions you couldn't answer. Maybe I wasn't.
Oh no, it's good. It's good. Um, I think my superpower is being able to have a clear picture of the big picture, and
Mhm.
trying and not getting too stuck in the weeds. And and sometimes stuff happens, and you're dealing with it, and you drop into the weeds. I think my superpower is being able to see the bigger picture and to make decisions from that are more logical than emotional.
Okay. Yep. That makes sense.
Right. And leading it back to mental health, I think my emotional IQ is quite high.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. So it allows me to manage situations without getting too emotional, and generally looking for the best outcome of whatever's going on.
Yeah. Nice. Nice. And so obviously, how long you been in business now?
So 17 years I've been doing this, and I've been running my own business since 2012, 2013.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe this is confronting a little bit. Do you consider yourself successful?
Yeah. Well, you see, we've got this saying in Australia about
The
not being a
tall poppy syndrome. Yeah. It's horrible.
yes. I consider myself being successful, in a humble manner, because I'm Australian. Yeah.
Nice. And why would you say that? What makes you say that you're successful?
Look, I would say it's a combination of financial security, um,
Hmm.
home life, and the family unit, um, the quality of friends that I have around me, and also my health.
Yeah, nice. Nice work. Let's say that you went back to so did you go straight into business or did you work for someone else first and then thought, no, I want to run my own business and do this? So like, what's
Yeah, mate.
your
Look,
pathway?
that could be a whole nother show, Rob. So I started out as a PE biology science teacher. That's what I studied.
Oh, okay.
And then
And realized how broke all the teachers were and I needed to do something else.
nearly. So I was also very young because I started school young, and I was like 20 when I graduated, and I was dating a 19-year-old nursing student, and you know, um, we may have to cut this out. Actually, don't put that up.
Well, full disclosure, I don't edit any of these. I just hit record and we go.
Is this going to go on?
I never edited anything out.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay,
Just
so
just don't tell your wife to listen.
yeah, no. So look, the bottom line was at 20 years of age, I was not ready to be a teacher. I was not ready to be in front of a classroom. I could have, but it was a whole level of maturity that I wasn't ready for. So I ended up traveling overseas, and I fell in love with snowboarding, and I became a snowboard instructor. So
Okay.
I was a snowboard instructor for 6 years. And in between seasons, I was working as a teacher, as a supply teacher, emergency.
Okay. In Europe or something.
No, in Australia.
Oh,
I
you
was
came back. Right.
doing endless winters. I was doing about 200 days a year on the snow,
Yeah,
and
okay.
come back for about 6 weeks, work, build up some money, and go again. And it was in that time where two things happened. One, I realized, hey, and I was a private instructor, a private snowboard instructor. I realized I'm not teaching any kids of teachers as a private instructor
Yeah.
at Colorado, which is where I was. And then I also started noticing, okay, I'm teaching a lot of doctors, a lot of plastic surgeons, a lot of property developers, and a lot of business owners. So that was the first realization of, hey, if I want to bring my family over here, I'm probably going to struggle to do it on a teacher's salary.
Yeah.
Second one was when I was in the staff room, and the teachers were talking about the amount of stress that they were under. And I remember sitting there going, to myself, going, well, if you guys are my role models,
Yeah.
then I think I need to do something else.
Yeah. 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 So if you could go back to that younger version of you, would you do anything different?
Of course, I would have bought Bitcoin.
Bitcoin wouldn't have existed though, would it?
Bitcoin as soon as it come up at $100. Absolutely. um, you know what I would have done, Rob? I had an opportunity to get into a property while I was working as a snowboard instructor. I was with my so I was with my partner, and we got married a couple of years later, and we looked at an apartment, and if I had my time again, I that would have been a great strategy. We delayed by a couple of years. We still did okay, but we should have just jumped in and got that going, straight away. But we did pretty well in the stock market, and we were using leverage and margin loans, which was fantastic until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and that was the GFC.
Yes. Yes. Good old GFC. Yeah. So I find that a lot of people are either like heavily into real estate or heavily into stock market derivatives, that kind of stuff. What's your personal perspective on what's the right strategy for some? Well, maybe that we're getting into the advice zone. What would you say are the pros and cons of both?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I there's Robert Kiyosaki created the board game Cash Flow, right? Cash Flow 101. And then he had the second part to that not a lot of people have. So it's Cash Flow 101, then it's Cash Flow 202, I think. And the second part of that is more to do with some more advanced strategies in the stock market to start building up your wealth when you don't have a lot, using different strategies of options and whatnot. So I I'm more heavily weighted towards shares and stocks because that's my area of expertise. But I am fairly balanced where, I'm spending more of my time now building up our property portfolio and actually doing some mini developments. That's what I'm doing personally, outside of what I do on a day-to-day
Professional basis, yeah.
Somebody starting out, what they'll probably find is that it's a lot easier, faster, cost efficient to get involved in the stock market initially.
Yeah, you don't need that much.
You don't need a lot, and to buy some shares and to get started. What I would also say is if you don't want to go headlong into it, dollar cost averaging into the S&P 500 has proven to be a really solid strategy over a long period of time. And that's the strategy of Warren Buffett is doing. When he passes, most of his wealth is going to go into the S&P 500. So outside of S&P 500, you could also buy some Berkshire Hathaway shares, although they're gotten quite expensive now.
Yeah, nice. So I think, well, two more questions. I think we all, well, if I look back at my own life, I've learnt most from my failures rather than the successes. What would be, say, the one that you're willing to share, obviously? What's one of your, say, the biggest failure where you've learned the most, and what did you learn?
Okay. So that is going to be around the GFC. So in the GFC, we took our portfolio, we took our $30,000. My wife and I, when we were working in 2001, and by 2007, we'd built that up to about $700,000-800,000. Okay, so we had a fairly good nest egg that we'd built up. Now, along that journey, as the stock market was really booming, now, don't get me wrong, Rob, I thought I was a genius. I absolutely it was all me.
Yeah.
We were getting returns of like 80% in a year.
Yeah, it was crazy there for a while.
Right? We're using margin loans. And so the lesson I learned is that a rising tide lifts all ships. It wouldn't have mattered if I just threw a random dart at a dartboard. There's a good chance markets were going to go up.
It's like property here during COVID when they said it was going to drop by 30% and then everything went up ridiculously.
Yes.
And so you couldn't have a dodgy, you couldn't lose on a property.
No, you're right.
Or a car for that matter, which was even more ridiculous.
So here I am thinking I'm a stock market genius, and that it was all because of my research and everything that I'd done. And look, I'd say that played a small part to it, but at the end of the day, I was going to do well because of the overall movement of the market. And so we were very leveraged. I was very highly leveraged with a margin loan, and we went through the first drop coming in November 2007. Market crashed, right? I got into some margin calls, and I had to work my way out. And then we're in 2008, and the markets had sort of rebounded. And so I've gone, okay, well, I've done this before. I'll redo it. I'll do this again. So how did I do it? I did it with high leverage. So I got leverage back into the market, and this is where they call a dead cat bounce, right? And then by March 2009, we were building. Portfolio was going back up. And then we got absolutely hammered when, so this is after Lehman Brothers had collapsed. And I think Lehman was the initial shockwave, but then it was 18 months later when the market took its biggest dip.
Yeah.
And I was very exposed to the markets. I'd had a lot of leverage at that point, and that was by far the most painful experience, because it wasn't just me and my family. It was also my dad and my dad's retirement that I was managing for him. And so I'm sitting there watching my dad's portfolio
Just cut in half, or yeah,
getting blown up. Toughest phone call I ever had to make was on March in 2009, where the market took a 200 point drop in the morning overnight, which meant that our markets were likely to follow. And I remember turning the computer on, just sitting in front of the screen going, please be green, because it meant we'd be okay. It meant we weren't going to be in a margin call. And we were, hopefully we're going to ride our way through. And of course, I turned it on, and it was massive crashes. And all I got out before bursting into tears was, and I had to get out of the office, and I walked down into the car park and got on the phone. I said, Dad, have you seen the market today? And that's as much as I got out. And then through the tears, together, I said, Dad, I'll get you out of this. I'll get you out of this, and you're going to be okay. And I had no idea what I was going to do, by the way, but it was just what needed to be said. And then, I'm very grateful to say that I was able to do some fairly high level options tradings when we started using put options, and we were able to stay out of a margin call, and then to ride that back up. So that by far, Rob, was the most difficult time I've ever gone through, because it wasn't only about me. It was more to do about my dad, his retirement. And I reckon, they talk about the frog in the frying pan.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got a frog in boiling water, if you turn it up slowly, it doesn't realize.
It doesn't notice.
There till it boils. But if you put it into hot water, it'll jump out. I reckon over the next 12 months, I really went into, I just took the pressure and the stress of the world on my shoulders for about a 12-month period before coming out of that. And part of going through that experience, that, all of the investments that I bring to market now has a layer of capital protection. We know our worst case scenario before we go in. So we don't go in exposed, where we can, potentially lose the shirt off our back, or potentially lose our lifetime savings.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Good lesson. And this is the nature of markets, isn't it? They go up and down, and they're doing really well at the moment. So let's just hope that they stay that way. The closer I get to a retirement age and protecting my super, I think, oh my goodness, let's just be good.
Yeah. And that's the way, right? Like when you're younger, you can afford to take more risk, whether it's property, shares, business, right? You can afford to take more risk. But once you get closer to retirement, then the portfolios change. And
that's right. More conservative.
Need to start going from more growth oriented to more income oriented.
Yeah, exactly. This has been really great, Jason. You've had a lot of value here today. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that? I will put the links below here, but mention it. Yeah.
So you can either reach out through our website, which is SMSF for Self-Managed Super Fund Financial.com.au. And there's also a QR code for anyone that wants to really draw a line in the sand to see where you're at today in it's specific to superannuation, but you could do this from anywhere in the world, right? It's more about your retirement. It's like what's your current retirement plans? What's your returns? You know, what is your estate planning? And there's 19 questions, and it will take less than 2 minutes. And it's basically just yes, no, but then it'll give you some really valuable insight. That's probably a great place to start. And then if you want to get in contact with me in my office, then there'll be an opportunity to book a call or to schedule a call through that.
Fantastic. Well, I'll put those details below the podcast or in the description here. Jason, I want to thank you so much for today. It's been great to get to know you here and talk about wealth, health, mental toughness, and so forth. I'm going to give you the closing word. You've got the floor to say whatever you would like to the audience as a closing comments.
Okay. Look, I would say that the driving question that's really driven me, that has put me in great stead in terms of growth and continued growth, is that I constantly ask myself, particularly when things don't go well, is, you know what, there's got to be a better way. You know, there's got to be a better way to do this. There's got to be a better way to structure this. How can I do this to give myself more control, more flexibility, you know, more protection? So that's one question that I'm asking myself every single day when I'm looking at things is, you know, there's got to be a better way. So that's my driving question that is sort of governed my life.
Nice work. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for having me on, buddy.